Hello, hello everyone. Happy Tuesday. Thanks for joining me here tonight. My name is Alyssa Thomas from Penguin and Fish, where we make lovely and quirky hand embroidery kits. And I'm here every weeknight at 8:30 p.m. Central Time, and it's a time where we can relax and craft together for about an hour, and I work on projects from beginning to end. So you can be part of the process, you can chit-chat along the way, and you can work on the project with me. So right now we're working on the Splendid Sampler to quilt along. Here is the book, and there is the quilt along going on right now. You can go check out more at thesplendidsampler.com. Also be sure to check out the Splendid Sampler Facebook page to see all the blocks, quilt blocks that everyone is doing. We are going to play some catch up here today. So I got half of the Flowering Tree by Amy Friend, half of this block completed. It is foundation paper piecing, so here is part of it. Here's the side that I don't quite have done yet. So we are going to continue on this. We'll see how this guy develops. You know, we'll start forming the shapes of him. And we'll see how that goes tonight. Some paper piecing in an attempt to get another one of these blocks at least further along. It's been sitting in here too long. It needs to be worked on this guy. So, all right, thanks guys for joining me, and I will flip you around. Let's do some foundation paper piecing. Ooh, you're from Blaine. Cherry, you're super close to me. Oh, how long is my hair now, Aloha? So, you guys, Last Halloween, so not this Halloween, but the Halloween before, so what would that be? 2017 is the last time I got my hair cut, so it's been a long time, but if you guys remember that, it was like this short, like it was almost nothing. It was so short, because I grew it as long as I had ever had it before, and then I donated it, and I had never done that before, but it was all cut off, and I have not cut it since. And I don't know, it's about maybe 8 inches or so from the scalp, but since it was this short over my whole head, it's kind of grown out as like a crazy mullet. Like I cannot wear it down because otherwise it just is too crazy. But yeah, it's getting long. I should wear it down once, but it is crazy town. All right, so here we are. Just to kind of review, we started out with an A section here and a B section. You kind of can see, you know, A1, A2, A3, A4, and so forth. And here you have B1, B2, B3, B4. So we had to separate the B from the A. And luckily in this pattern, they were already kind of separated for us. Here's Flowering Tree A, here's Flowering Tree B. That's not the case all the time. Sometimes you'll have what looks like a nice finished piece, but then you realize, oh, this is a B section, and this is a C section, and here's the A section. So sometimes you have to find the sections and break them out yourself. In this case, we have the A and the B, and it was made for us already. I've also done the extra step, which I think is really like a good idea if you're doing foundation paper piecing, is I colored in the parts so I didn't get lost, you know, because you're moving things around, you're turning things, they're oddball shapes. You might get lost pretty quick on what fabric is what. So I've assigned a colored pencil, just different fabrics. So this colored pencil, this kind of gold colored pencil was my flower fabric, and this yellow colored pencil was this kind of yellow dot fabric, and the white was white. So that's helpful. We do have the one side done. So we're actually working on the back side. So when we flip it, it's the front side. So this whole entire time we'll be kind of focused on the back side here. So this guy's done. I have pre-cut some shapes for the rest of my piece, and I don't usually do that, but I did this time because I had like none of this fabric yet left. And, like this is it for the fabric, and I had just enough to kind of get these slivers of these tree branches, and I think this long trunk piece too. So I literally just had enough. So I cut it out just to make sure I didn't use it for something else. Same with this. I cut it so I wouldn't use it for something else. But I typically don't cut them before. But I do have them ready for this time. So I have my setup. I have my cut area, my kind of work area, and then I have my sewing machine right there and my pressing mat right here with the iron. And I'll just do like a circle. I'll do here, sewing, ironing, here, sewing, ironing, and it'll be just a process of those three things this whole time. All right, I also have a postcard here, and I use a postcard for this because we're going to be using it to fold our straight lines here. And a postcard, it's nice and thin still, but it's nice and stiff, so it'll be good to get nice sharp folds. And then as bonus points, I have my add a quarter ruler. And what this does, I'll show you how it works, but it has a small lip on it, see right there, that like a little bump out right there, and that little lip is a 1/4 inch. So that's going to help us get easy 1/4 inch seam allowances without having to get a ruler out and measure and putz with that. Because the beauty of foundation paper piecing is that you don't have to deal with any measuring. You can work with crazy, weird, blobby shapes and they turn out perfect. It's kind of magic. And because of that, because, you know, for me, the stressful things are like cutting, perfect cutting, and perfect measuring. Since I don't have to deal with either of those things, I find foundation paper piecing, once you get the process down, just super relaxing. So anyway, feel free to check out the videos before this on the Penguin and Fish Movies YouTube page, because I have the whole process for where we started. I'm going to be just starting up where we left off here, so we might miss some of the kind of beginning steps, but we're going to keep going. So we have, let's see, you know, B1, 2, 3, 4. It looks like the B5 piece is on right here. So B6 is our next piece here, and it is, we're going to use one of our yellow gold pieces, and I think, like I said, I've pre-cut these. This must be my long one here, so this will be the B6 piece. Oh my god, these pieces just barely fit. But all right, what we're going to do first is we're going to get the postcard out. So we're working on B6. I am going to cover up everything that came before. So that's like B5 and everything that came before that, just like that. And I'm going to pretend nothing else exists. Like I'm going to pretend that, you know, this line here doesn't exist. I'm going to pretend that these don't exist. This seam allowance doesn't exist. I'm going to just cover up what we already did and only focus on the line between B6 and everything that came before. I rotated it a little bit just now just so I can have the postcard on my left and what I'm folding on the right here. So I'm going to put my postcard right along that line. Again, it's the piece that you're working on and the line between the piece that you're working on and everything that comes before. You know, it's not this line because that's B7 that comes after. So B5 comes before, so we're focusing on this line. And I'm going to fold the entire sheet over. And we're going to just put our little crease there. All right, so here's our goofy, blobby shape from before, revealed now that we've folded this line. This is where the add a quarter ruler comes in. I'm going to butt it up right against this postcard. So the postcard kind of has, you know, it's a little higher than my surface here. And because of this little lip, if I just bump it on there, like I can do it with my eyes closed, I'm going to have a perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance when I cut this. So you can do it with a normal ruler. You don't need the add a quarter. You can just take the 1/4 inch and line it up with the fold and then cut. But I'm telling you, if you're doing some paper piecing, just to like not have to think and just pop that on there like that, it makes such a difference as far as the relaxing experience, really. So bopping that on there, rotary cutter, and we're going to trim off that excess. So there we go. Perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance. So now we can fold this back. And next up is getting this fabric piece. So again, we're on B6. I'm going to use this fabric here. So what we need is a piece of fabric that is as big as this shape plus a generous seam allowance. And I typically do like a good ½ inch almost for a seam allowance, like a nice big shape around it. Because if you're too small, then you risk like having a little piece exposed. Like if I did it too small and I don't have it in the right spot, I might have like a little corner exposed, and then you're just kind of messed up. And it's tough to rip out these seams because you're perforating the paper. So if you rip out the seams, you might rip your paper. So that's no fun. So I tend to do bigger pieces. There will be scraps, but you know, I think that's perfectly fine. A little scraps for making it easier. Okay, so like I said, I kind of pre-cut this piece. Let's just double check it. This is cutting it close though. I would normally cut a piece way larger than this, but I am out of fabric. So I'm putting it with the right side down, because when we sew it, remember, we're working on the back, so when we sew it, it's going to be on the top like that. So all I'm doing is double checking that I got at least a ½ inch seam allowance. So yeah, we're cutting it kind of close there. What about this bottom area? Again, kind of close. I usually like a bigger seam allowance. What about over here? Yep, we're fine there. And on top, I think we're okay as well. But man, those sides, I do like a larger seam allowance. So typically, I like to start with a nice straight edge that's about a ½ inch. So I kind of like that same fold that we've been doing. I'm going to just fold that back, kind of tuck things out of the way, and I'm going to just put a straight edge up here. I just happen to have my add a quarter ruler, and I'm going to just straighten out this edge about a ½ inch away from our fold. Okay, so there we go. Now I'm going to line up that nice edge that we did with that edge that we cut. So remember, we folded this back and we cut that nice straight edge with our add a quarter ruler. That straight edge we want to match up with the straight edge that we just trimmed. Okay? So this is where it gets funny, because you might be like, oh, that shape's weird. Is that going to go in the right spot and stuff? We're going to test. So we're going to just lay this piece on top, right sides together, and we're going to test sew this. Because in theory, once we sew it, we want this piece has to cover this shape. So if we don't cover this entire shape, then we're gonna have like those holes. So I'm gonna just start out by laying it anywhere, kind of where I think it should go. And I'm gonna flip it around, and I'm gonna get 2 pins, and we're gonna pretend sew. So that same edge that we folded, that same fold, I'm going to just put pins, 2 pins, right within that fold, like I'm pretending to sew along that line. All right, just like that. And now I'm going to pretend to iron that. So I'm just kind of folding this along the pins. And the test is, when we flip it around, do we still have that generous ½ inch seam allowance around our piece? So let's peek. All right. We're looking okay here, so that looks good. What about the top from here to here? Yeah, we got tons over here, but what about down here? Ooh, we have enough. You know, it wouldn't hurt to have a little bit more, but I think we're covered. What about right there? Yep. So we have our ½ inch seam allowance in the right spot, so we can sew. But let's say that when I did the test, so let's pretend press again. Let's say when I did the test, like this seam allowance was a lot smaller. Like let's say the seam allowance was like maybe 1/8 of an inch. Then I know, ooh, I gotta move the whole piece of fabric down. So then I would unpin my pins and scooch this piece of fabric down and then redo my test. But we're good to go here, so I'm gonna flip this back so the right sides are together, and I am going to sew along that line, and you can just leave the pins in for now. So I'm gonna head over to the machine. Here's my stitch length. It's set at 12, which means like a 1/12 of an inch. This is, 0. This is just stitching in place. I'm going to make my stitches a little bit smaller, so I'm going to aim it more towards that 0. That is just going to make more, it's going to make smaller stitches, so it's going to make more perforation holes in my paper, which is going to make it easier to take all the papers off later. All right, so I'm going to sew right on that line, and I'm not going to cross over into another shape. So I'm going to just start right there, and I'm going to go forward once and backwards once, and then I'm going to continue to the end. All right. So I'm going to just stitch along the line here. So you guys, I am not done with full circle yet. I think I will work on that tomorrow. Even if we're not quite done with this, I might still work on the full circle tomorrow. I know that's kind of a tough block, and it's kind of a goofy next part that we're going to do. So I think we could maybe do that tomorrow. All right, I'm going to actually stitch into this seam allowance and then back tack. Once you hit a seam allowance, you can stitch into that. But if this was just another section like this, I would not stitch into it. All right, snip it off, and then I always snip the little threads right away. First on the paper side, then on the fabric side. I'll show you guys the full circle one in a bit. Just trying to finish up some blocks here tonight. All right, off to the ironing board. In this case, I have my wool ironing mat. So now you're starting to see I'm going the cutting, sewing, pressing, cutting, sewing, pressing. All right, so I'm going to put the printed side down because I don't want to get that, random computer printer ink on my iron. So I'm just going to give it a little press to start out. And then I'm going to finger press it, which just means I'm going to fold it and I'm going to just press it by hand a little, and I'm going to extend it past where I sewed, and then I will hit it with the iron. The whole line of it. Oh no, Lean, oh yes, you finished yours. I saw that over on the Penguin and Fish Crafters page. It looks awesome. Yeah, I want to keep going on that one too. Yesterday, I was going to do it yesterday, but all the sewing machine was out and everything, and then I saw another unfinished block, and I wanted to work on the unfinished blocks, get them out of the way. How long does a new wool pressing mat, stink whenever you iron on it? Oh, I don't know why that is, Jane. It probably just has to sit out for a little while. Maybe it was just like the packaging or something. Does it have that kind of wool, like wet wool? If you're spraying stuff on it, then it might have that wet wool smell. But I'm not sure. I haven't really done any. I don't have any. I'm using a dry iron, so I haven't really done anything yet as far as like a wet surface for it. But we are done with that shape, you guys. That is the whole process. So let's do it again. And this is what I love. You can do these weird, crazy blobs, but it ends up super perfect when you're done. So it's a great way to use just crazy shapes. But all right, that was our B6. Our next is B7 right there. And so I've color coded it. That is my last little flower piece here. So let's start out by our fold. Here's B7. We're gonna cover up everything that came before. Ooh, got a little hair on here. Out of here. There we go. All right, and I'm gonna fold this over. And again, now is our time where we're gonna cut that crazy blob away. Gonna bop that on here. And there we go. Oh, Jane, I do not know what it is. Yeah, Glennis, mine does not have a smell either. Maybe it did when it started out. I don't kind of recall. But I would, yeah, just try and air it out as best you can. All right, again, I kind of pre-cut this blob a little bit. Let's double check. Oh gosh, I got tons. I got oodles of seam allowance around there. Ooh, let's angle it a little bit. I lost it a little bit there. So again, we're looking for a piece as big as our B7 plus our generous seam allowance to make it easy for us. That looks like a pretty generous seam allowance everywhere. What about here? Oh yeah. So again, I'm going to try and get that kind of 1/4 inch or just like a nice straight edge here, really. So I'm just going to pop that on and just kind of estimate a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I just want a straight edge, really. Sometimes I cut a straight edge beforehand. All right, so now we match up straight edges. That straight edge I just cut and that straight edge that we did with the add a 1/4 ruler. Again, I'm gonna just kind of plop this on wherever I think. Luckily, we do have a big seam allowance, so anywhere I put this, I'm probably gonna hit my spot, but you never know for sure. Sometimes it moves, so, or sometimes, you know, it needs to be shifted. So I'm gonna match my seam allowance with, or match my edge with the right sides together. Let's flip it around. Do our pretend sewing along that line. I wouldn't skip this pretend sewing because it can, you know, better safe than sorry, really, especially on oddball shapes like triangles and stuff. The triangles can be tricky sometimes. Oh, Jane, I love this. I love this block too. All right. Gosh, it's looking cute. Okay, let's do our check. We did our pretend press, so we got to flip it around again. So the test is, do we still have that generous seam allowance around our B7? Let's peek. I just kind of put my nails along the edge and peek. Yep, we're good there. Definitely good here. Here, we're cutting it a little close. Like, here's the bottommost point. I just have like a 1/4 inch. I don't know, since we have so much up here, I think I might scooch it down a little bit. So here's how you do that. I'm gonna just pull out my pins and I need to scooch it this way a little bit. So we had a lot up here, so I'm just gonna go like, boop, maybe, I moved it about 1/8 of an inch. Maybe I moved it about a 1/4 inch. Let's flip it around again. I'm going to pretend so. I'm still using these bent pins. I got those nice new pins. I don't know, maybe I just need to go through all my old pins and throw out all these bent ones. All right, pretend so. All right, let's flip it around. Do we have that seam allowance? Let's check again. Yep, on the bottom. We got it on the side. Ooh, I poked myself. There we go. That's a much bigger seam allowance. So we're good. So I'm going to flip this back. You can leave the pins in with these big, long pieces. Sometimes it's nice to leave the pins in because they can get kind of floppy. Otherwise, you can just hold it in place and flip it around. But over to the iron. Okay, let's sew along that line again. I'm going to start right where this is and then go into the seam allowance, right where this other shape was. Oh man, I'm going to have to look up what you guys are talking about. Oh jeez, that's sad. Oh, I don't think I did a back tack, but that's okay. Right on that line and into the seam allowance, and now I'll back tack. All right, let's snip these threads off. And on the fabric side. Okay, off to press. Oh my gosh, I still have such a mess here. This Reynolds wrap was from, the freezer paper was from so long ago. Jane, I am using a quilting, a 1/4 inch quilting foot, and I'm still kind of deciding if I like it or not. I just kind of have it on still. All right, I just gave that a little press. Let's finger press it now. And our little tree branches are exposed. I got one of those big packs of quilting, or not quilting, of sewing machine feet that you can interchange, like a pack of 50 or something. And the quilting, the 1/4 inch quilting foot, piecing foot for quilting was one of them. And I've been trying it out, but I should play with some other ones of those feet too. All right, we're done. Let's flip it around and see what's next. That was B7. Okay, B8. Okay, B8's over here. That's our kind of our stem, our trunk of our tree. All right, like I said, I already kind of pre-cut the piece because I was so out of fabric. And all right, we need our postcard. This one's kind of fun because we're going to cross over all these other pieces. So we're going to cover up everything that came before, which is all of this. And we are going to fold along that line. I'll scooch up for you guys. Come on. There we go. If you sewed over the line, you might have to just kind of tear the paper a little bit to get a nice edge, but that works. But look at all our crazy seam allowances. Now all these crazy blobs are all of a sudden going to turn into a perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance, which I love that. It's magic. Oh yeah, it doesn't really matter what presser foot what sewing foot you actually use, because we are just going along the line. We are only, I'm not using like a 1/4 inch here or there. I am just literally stitching along this line. It's kind of like a coloring book, you know, I'm just going, it's all drawn out for me. I'm just going on that line. All right, let's put the right side down for our piece. And let's frame our B8 piece within our tiny cut of fabric here. So, you know, again, I want a generous seam allowance around this, but I was totally way low on fabric, so I might just barely have enough fabric. So let's flip this up, see what we got. Oh, I actually got quite a bit over there. I can actually scooch this over a bit, I think. Yeah, I think we're good right there. So I'm going to just rotate this because I want to cut my straight edge along this folded side. So right here. So I'm just going to cut a straight edge that's about a 1/4 inch or so. Again, I don't think it matters too much. I just want that straight edge. Okay, straight edge. Let's match up our straight edges now. We got this straight edge, And we got this straight edge. So here we will definitely do our test sewing. Oh, Jane, you can get one from Amazon. I have a link to it in the Facebook post here. When you look for them, they come in different sizes. So here it is, the add a quarter ruler. They come in an 1/8 inch too. I recommend the 1/4 inch. That's what this is. And I also recommend the 12-inch long one. I think the common size is 6 inches. But man, I just don't think 6 inches is good enough for, you know, some of these blocks and stuff. Like you know, I think this would be a little bit more than 6 inches. So I don't know, the 12-inch, I like that just right. And I think some people were saying now they have like on this edge or something, they have it tapered so that you can actually use it instead of a postcard. I think you can use the tapered edge for your flipping part. So I think they've improved on the add a quarter since I purchased this. All right, we're doing our test. So let's get our pins. Oh my God, I dropped it on the floor again. Pin, where are you? Here we go. Bad news when you have pins lying on the ground. All right, pretend sewing. This is such a skinny little strip here. All right. And again, the reason for this test is to make sure we have enough seam allowance along all our edges, because sometimes it can be hard to know with oddball shapes. Ooh, look, it is coming together. We are shaping that tree. With every new piece, it just gets closer and closer to what it's supposed to be. It's just kind of fun. All right. Definitely enough seam allowance over here, although there is kind of a nick out of it, out of our scrap. But I think, oh gosh, there is a nick. Maybe I should scooch it up a hair. Although we are cutting through it with this B9 fabric. I think if I measure from right here, I think we're fine. What about on top, this point? Gosh, we're pretty close to that edge too. Oh, I think we just have a 1/4 inch. I'm not going to move this. I think this piece was barely big enough when I cut it. Like I said, I ran out of this fabric, so I just barely got these pieces out of it. I'm going to leave it as is. I'm going to leave the pins because that'll make it easier to sew, especially, like I said, with a big floppy piece like this. Let's attach this guy. All right. Got the wiggles here tonight. Oh, you like the 12-inch one too, Jane? And you think you'd use it a lot? Yeah, I just totally, I mean, it really, you'd be surprised how much more relaxing this gets when you don't have to measure. When you can just cut crazy blobs. You don't have to think about absolutely perfect, you know, 1/4 inch cut shapes, which I know a lot of people do for foundation paper piecing. But I just cut my blobs because they're going to be trimmed down to have like perfect seam allowances, you know. And then the add a quarter, so I don't even have to measure my 1/4 inch seam allowance. It just is just freeing. All right, so I'm going to actually start in the seam allowance. Whenever a line that I'm sewing goes into the seam allowance, I'm going to actually sew in the seam allowance as well. I'm not going to just stop right at the other shape. So this one, I go in the seam allowance here, and I also, oh no, I don't. I have a stopping point right here. So I'm going to stop right at this B9 piece, and actually I think it might be easier if I sew it in this direction. I'm going to start here, do a little back tack, and then I will go into the seam allowance once I hit this point. All right, let's do it. All right, there we go. Got it started. You know, I got the add an 1/8 ruler for the Splendid Sampler, the first Splendid Sampler. So the theory is with the add an 1/8, if you have tons of tiny pieces, you can reduce some of the bulk of the 1/4 inch seam allowance by changing it into an 1/8 inch seam allowance. But I found that it was more difficult to, if you sewed and any of your seam allowance just budged a little or your fabric just moved a hair, then it was really kind of, you didn't have much leeway, and you might end up with a hole. So I actually kind of preferred, even though it was bulky, I think I still preferred the add a quarter ruler. I don't know, maybe I just had to play with the add an eighth ruler a little bit more. All right, let's trim these threads on this side. So here I went into the seam allowance there. I think I got a little bit off the line at the end, but oh well. Whew, that is it for this fabric. I used up one fabric for of the fabric that I picked for the Splendid Sampler 2, so I'm completely out of this adorable little yellow dot, which is kind of a shame. It's a really cute fabric. I could have totally used it more, but oh well. I'm happy I used it up. That's what it's there for. Oh my gosh, there's hardly any seam allowance here, but it was enough. We did a test. Now we're forming the tree. There are the branches. It's so blobby, but every shape just cuts another piece into it. Okay, so up next, we almost have this done here. There's a few more. So we have, look, it's coming together. Cute. All right, we got 2 more pieces it looks like, but let's just go by the rules. We just did the B8 piece. So B9 is right there. I need to snag some white fabric from my bin. Here we go. Okay, postcard. Cover up everything before the B9. Let's get my add a quarter ruler out here. Okay, flip up along that edge. I love when the seam allowance crosses over into another fabric. I think that's kind of neat. Bop that on. Zoop. Okay, there is our shape. So now we can really start with our blobs. So let's just start with some of these odd shapes that are already cut. You know, this is doing all these blobs is the chance we have to use up some of the really weird cuts of, you know, Frankenstein cuts that we're doing here. So we already have a straight edge here as well at both sides, so that'll make this easy. The one thing with this white fabric is that it is a solid, so I have to remember, especially when you're doing triangles and things with weird angles, I have to remember what side is the right side. So, okay, I'm going to just put the right side. Gosh, I'm tempted to mark it with a pin or something, but we'll just try and remember. This is the right side, putting it down, and let's see. All right, I'm going to use this. We'll use this side here. I'm going to use this straight edge, so I don't have to cut it this time because I already have it. Let's just kind of get that straight edge matching up with our folded edge. And we need remember our generous seam allowance. So this, you know, is cutting it a little close, so I'm going to scooch it down. All right, here's where we cut our blob. So I'm just going to cut a blob around our shape here. And we already have a built-in seam allowance on the edge here because this designer added that for us. So we have kind of like a built-in extra seam allowance. So boop, there we go. That is our blob. And I think I'm actually connected. Yeah, I'm connected here. Okay, so blob complete. So we have this straight edge already. I could clean it up, but yeah, let's clean it up. So we can have a perfect edge, I suppose. Okay, here's the part that I have to remember that this is the wrong side and this is the right side. So let's match up that straight edge with, ooh, that pretty straight edge that we cut here. And this is the right side underneath. So right sides have to go together. So they're like that. Okay, so I'm going to just kind of, you know, plop this on kind of in the middle. We're going to do our test. Flip it around. Pins, now where are you? Oh man, not good to lose track of pins. Oh, here they are, good. I don't want to step on one of those. All right, let's pretend so. Sometimes I'll just do a double check like this and just see if it all matches up, but I'm going to do it for real with my test. Okay, we've fake sewed and now we're going to fake press. We're looking for that. I mean, I can already see that because I can see the paper through. I can see we still have our good generous seam allowance. Oh yeah, we got our generous seam allowance all the way around. Let's sew that up. We just have one piece after this. I'm gonna try and shoot to get this guy done yet. We only have like 15 more minutes or so. And the last little bit of this that's a little bit different than what we're doing now is sewing pieces, like two sections together. So we have the A section and the B section. Ooh, wow, that moved around funny. The A section and the B section, we'll try and stitch those together today as well, because matching up sections is a little bit different than the rest of this process. And that's where I wanted to get to today is that. So let's keep moving ahead here. We just have that one more piece, so maybe we can do that guy up pretty quickly. This one looks like it might be pretty rather, I don't know, maybe not so difficult one to match up. Although there is a little bit of a trick to it. So we'll definitely I think we'll definitely have time to go that far. If I can crank out that last section that we need to do yet. Oops. But here, now these last white pieces are shaping our tree, which is just, it's fun to, it's just all of a sudden revealed. All those blobs. The one part that we won't do today is probably tear out all of the paper sheets. But I don't know, maybe we'll take a look at that too. Probably won't finish that though. All right, last one, B10. Let's get our postcard. Again, this one's cutting across some other ones, which is kind of cool. Oop. Sorry, you guys, I'm a little low there. Okay, covering up everything before. Ooh, look at all those blobby edges. No more. Okay, let's see if we can get more out of this funny white piece here. This white fabric is actually kind of, I have a few of these white fabrics and I think I used one up already for this, so we don't have actually too many blobby shapes yet. Let's work in this section here. Okay, so I need to match again this fold. I need a shape that's as big as this, so I'm going to set that on, and I need that straight edge. I suppose let's just go right here. I'm just going to cut a nice straight edge here. Get rid of all this weird excess. Oh, moving the ruler a little bit. All right, that's our straight edge. Let's cut our blob. Remember, this is the right side and this is the wrong side in this case. Okay, B10 up here. Got to make sure that the piece that we're doing is actually on the fabric and not, you don't want to do it this way because you need the fabric around. All right, I think, okay, there's our generous 1/4 inch seam allowance there. Now I just got to cut that blob around here, I think. We'll cut a nice big blob and make it easy. Easy peasy. There, how about like that? Done with the white. And let's match up our straight edges. So this straight edge, and then let's see. The right side is underneath. So right sides together. Again, I'm just kind of centering it. I can kind of fold it. Maybe this is the other way that I do the test sometimes. When I'm feeling a little bit more confident, like I have a big shape, sometimes I'll just, instead of pinning it, I'll just kind of fold it over about at the 1/4 inch mark. And then I'll just hold the whole thing and flip it around and see how I did. So right now I would add a little bit more over here. So I'm just going to flip it back, scooch it up right away, and then kind of do the test again. Same thing, I'm just kind of skipping the pins. Yep, generous seam allowance all the way around, so I'm going to do it right there. All right, let's sew. All right, so this time I don't have it pinned, so I have to make sure that I hold this edge together when I flip it, because I don't want that to fall apart. So I'm just gonna flip around like there. We're going in both seam allowances this time. Just going on that line. Trying to be a straighter sewer. All right, that was the last piece. Let's snip and press, and then we'll get these other two pieces, the two sections together. Yeah, we're cruising on this last piece. Okay, to the mat. Just press that seam. We'll finger press it. Cute! We're shaping the tree. All right, and that is the other half of our tree there. Next up, so that's kind of it for the paper piecing parts. I mean, next up we're going to trim the edge, kind of like how we've done here already. So what we're going to do is I'm going to even pretend that we don't have this seam allowance here, because sometimes these projects don't give you that extra seam allowance. So you have to pretend you're making it yourself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the actual outside line of the pieces as my main guide. So I might actually trim off some of this paper as I go. So I'm just going to use the 1/4 inch on this ruler. I'm using this ruler because it's a little longer. I can go this entire edge. So I'm putting that 1/4 inch mark on my actual outside of the actual sections, not that added on seam allowance. All right, we're going to trim. There, I cut a little bit of paper, but now I'm getting my nice exact cut where I want it to be. Get rid of that little trimmed paper, and let's go around all the edges. So first, oh yeah, I mean I could keep this edge, but since I've already trimmed this edge, I'm gonna just trim them both. But at this point, I could sew the two pieces together and then trim all this off later. You know, especially since when I was quilting it, I wanted a little bit extra edge. But since I already cut this one off, I'm gonna just go ahead and trim this as well, the outermost edge. But yeah, you could wait and do this part later, but I think we're just gonna do it. And I don't know, maybe it's not the best idea. Maybe I should be waiting, but we did one side. Let's do the other side like this too. Maybe our next paper piecing project, I'll be sure to not cut these outer edges first. I think it's satisfying though. You get to see like each little step, each little cut like this, and all of a sudden it looks nicer and nicer. It's kind of fun. Whoop, moved a little bit. Okay, so there are our two sides. It's looking cute. So next up is, ooh, wow, look, I have a little nick out of there because that fabric was so little. See, that's the problem right there. Hopefully my piece is big enough that I can cover that up, but I think we'll be okay. So next thing we want to do is sew these two together. So in theory, if we look at the back, we're going to sew this line here to this line here. And in this case, we can, you know, you might be tempted to just kind of put them together and sew, you know, and we can use this as a guide. However, there are some things we have to match up on this. So if we take a look at this a little bit more, and let's take a look at it on this side. This point here, we want that to match up with this point here. So the tree comes up to a perfect point, so it's not like off a little bit. So we need those to match. And then if we look down here along this edge, we're also going to want this point and this point to match. So what I like doing is I get a really straight pin. This is actually one that is, oh gosh, look, it's not that straight, but it's straighter than a lot of my other ones. So what I do is I'll put right sides together and I will put a pin right through, and I'll look on the back, I'll put a pin right through that point that I want to match up. So here's the pin. I think I got to go a little higher. Ooh, it looks like I can visually kind of see it's up in this nook here. I'm just gonna, there we go. Let's see if we got close. Yeah, maybe a little higher. There we go. That looks like I'm through that point. And I think we're looking okay from the front. Let's just, yeah, I think that'll be okay. Actually, getting picky here now. I think it's a little higher. All right, so I'm going to match that point up. There we go. I'm going to match this point up. I'm going to put the sides together, but now I'm going to match it up with the point here. And again, I'm going to try and get it so it's tucked up into that nook there, because I think that's really where it's supposed to go. There we go, kind of like there. Let's see if we can get a little higher there. All right, you know what? I think we're just going to do that there, even though it's a little farther over. Well, that's kind of where this one is too. So, all right, we're fine. So I use the back to kind of match up those two pieces. And you can see I can kind of shift the needle. I can shift it like this. I can shift it like this. If I shift it like this, then it moves this fabric forward. And if I shift it like this, it moves this fabric forward. I want these to be perfectly straight so they match perfectly. And I want it straight both ways, so vertically, horizontally, every way. And let's match these edges, these straight edges here. And then again, let's just get this so it's perfectly straight through. And then I'm going to wonder clip this thing. Oh, and you guys, you know what? I need right sides together. There we go. Let's try this again. So let's put it through the back here. There we go. This will make it a little easier, I think. Thought it was looking weird. There we go. We'll poke it through till we match it. There we are. Now we'll put right side this edge together and make sure that our pin is pin is super straight. All right, I think that's feeling good. Now I will clip those. There we go. That's gonna hold this in place really well. So now I can remove this pin. Once it's clipped, I can remove the pin. And now this other point that I want to match up. Oh, it looks like I maybe want to, oh wait, no, not that piece. I want to match up this point right here. So again, I'm going to just kind of lift that top piece up and I'm going to poke it right through that point. And then I'm going to just kind of guess on this side and I'm going to poke it until, ooh, that was a good guess, until it's right through that pin. You're having one of those days too, Nolene. Yeah, it happens. All right, and then let's straighten out that pin really well from all angles again. Make sure our edge is together, and let's clip that one as well. I'll do a little bit down further. All right, and then we can remove that pin. So, all right, now I'm going to sew along that line, and I'm going to hope that we got this together. Oh, do you guys get rid of this seam allowance first? We're going to try it this way. We'll see how it goes, and if it ends up being wacky, we'll adjust, I think, for the future. The good thing is that with the Splendid Sampler project, we'll have lots of chances to do foundation paper piecing. All right, again, I'm going to just try and sew on that line. This time I'm actually going to err on the side, since our fabric is so thick, I'm going to err on the side of just to the outside of my line here. So just, you know, a little skinnier seam allowance. And I like back tacking it. I'm going to back tack it again. All right, let's remove this guy and hope for the best. I'm really trying to stay by that line. Ooh, wow, we're hitting some. Oh, it just ran into my ruler on the other side. All right. All right, we're reaching that point. There we are, and now I'm gonna just back tack again and see what we got. Ooh, let's see how close we got. All right, let's snip these edges. I'm excited. Let's see what this looks like. We may have to take, now that we have all these perforations, we may want to take out that, before we press this, we'll remove this paper because then we can lay it a bit flatter. So, okay, let's check it out. Take a peek. Oh, I think that's almost to a good point up there. I think maybe it's not a perfect point, but hey, that looks pretty dang good right there. That point is meeting up. All right, I like it. I want to see what it looks like a little bit better, so I'm going to start actually tearing out this paper. I'm just going to tear the edge. And because we shortened our stitch length, we have all these little perforations. I mean, you're going to get the perforations no matter what, because every time the needle goes in, it's making like a hole, just a perforation. But with that smaller stitch length, you get a little bit more perforations. All right, there's our one side. We're getting a little head start on taking the papers out. Oh, we're just getting this done on time. All right, this is the part that makes a mess. We got all these, we're gonna have all these little papers everywhere. But now it should lay a little flatter. Now we can peek up at the top. Oh, we don't have quite a perfect point up there. However, our white parts meet at the same spot. And you know what? We've kind of cut off each point. We don't have a perfect point at all these, so this kind of matches with it, I think. So I think I'm going to tear the rest of these papers off before I, let's press it. I was going to take the papers out before I pressed it because it was kind of thick, but I don't want to wait. I want to press it. So I think I want to press it flat because then it won't be, there's a lot of seam allowance here and it's pretty heavy. But I'm going to kind of press it to one side first just to get the ball rolling. There we go. And I think, you know, this will be easier once it's out of the paper too. Let's kind of press it this way too. All right, and I'm going to wait to press the seam allowance open until I have all the papers out because I don't want my iron running over this ink here. But let's take a look at it. It is a little flatter now. Get all the fuzzles out of here. And I don't know, it's looking pretty dang cute. Just going to bend it a little bit. Yeah, but yeah, we matched up these parts really well, I think. Our white part up here matches up just right, and that's totally from using that pin method. Yeah, that is dang perfect right there. That's great where that matches up. Awesome! There we are, you guys. So all that is left with this block is pulling these papers out. And one way, I'm not going to do that whole thing tonight because it actually kind of takes a little bit of time. But one way to get it going is kind of pull at opposite ends. Sometimes you can hear, ooh, there we go. They start to pop open a little bit. Oh, there we go. Now you can see kind of a whole pile of them started. That's sometimes an easy way to get it going. But after that, you do want to kind of take your time. Sometimes they'll come out really easily, and sometimes you'll get like these little dudes in the corner. If you have some of those left over, they'll dissolve over time in, you know, the wash. And, you know, you'll see a lot of vintage quilts with these papers in it still sometimes. But yeah, this is actually coming out pretty easily. You know, I gotta, again, be picky about these little parts, but it's fun to pull out all these big areas. Now I want to keep going. But I suppose we can stop for the evening. I kept you guys a little later than normal. There we go, getting it started here. But there we go, and that's that. What's nice about it too is once you get all those papers out, it's like fabric again. You don't have all this stiff paper here anymore, and it feels like you just did some magic because it feels like you cut out this perfect shape. You made perfect seam allowances to make this really intricate design. It is kind of magic. So there you are, you guys. Flowering Tree by Amy Friend. We have another one just about done. All right, gonna flip you around and we'll call it an evening. Hello again, yay! So we got this piece done. I'll probably pull out the rest of these little papers tonight. I don't think that'll take that long, but there we are, cute. You can see the contrast a little closer up. I think maybe less from far away. It's kind of diamondy. I like it. Paula, I'm probably not going to replace this fabric. I'm going to just keep using up what I got, and if I really feel the need later to add more fabric into the ones I chose already for the quilt, then maybe I will, but it's kind of fun. It's a fun challenge to have less and less fabric to deal with, so to make choices from, so I'm going to kind of give myself that challenge, I think. But there we are! Awesome! So thank you guys for joining me again. This video will go up on YouTube at Penguin and Fish Movies, and I will group it with the other Flowering Tree video. So if you did want to start this block from the beginning, it will all be like really easy right together there. So yeah, that's on Penguin and Fish Movies on YouTube, and it will also stay here. Tonight's will stay here on the Penguin and Fish page on Facebook. So awesome, you guys. I will see you tomorrow. Have a great evening.